Pregunta Arturo Tobar de Urbano DF. Arturo Tobar.
Hi, how are you? First, I want to be the first one to congratulate you for the movie.
No se te escucha, Arturo.
I want to be the first one to congratulate you for the movie. It was awesome. Thank you. You kind of destroyed my top 10. Right to the first.
Oh, thank you very much.
I wanted to know where did the inspiration came from such a short story? I mean, it's only 2.5 pages. What inspired you to?
Well, I mean, the story is really short, but I think it's an incredibly moving story, and it's lasted over the years. I mean, it was written in 1939. And I think that Thurber created this iconic character that everybody can relate to. The idea of somebody who has this potential inside of them, has all these sort of dreams and incredible imagination in their head that they can't express in real life. And I felt very connected to that idea. And even though the story doesn't really take, the short story doesn't really take the story out into the world, it's just sort of a little slice of life. I think he created a tone there that had this melancholy and this sort of nobility about this character. The idea that the regular guy, you know, anywhere in life has all this potential inside of him that we don't see. So that was enough for me to want to make a movie about that, because I felt it was a very real feeling that a lot of people have. Thanks.
Pregunta 2. Héctor Pérez Tobar de Skyview.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, welcome to Mexico.
Thank you.
Great film.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You touch a very important subject with the whole media and the whole digitalization of the media. So, as a journalist, thank you for touching that. We need more human touch on the written word and all that. So, you added that to the script, or what are your thoughts about that?
Well, that was Steve Conrad's idea, who wrote the screenplay, and I thought when I read it that it made the movie for me very relevant and put it in context today, very relatable. You know, I think both the idea of print journalism and analog media sort of going away and becoming digital, both in magazines and also in film. And also the idea of downsizing in our economy and what people are having to experience in the world with their jobs, people who really care about what they do, and the work that they do sort of being set off to the side and not being appreciated. And I think that fed into the themes of the story too, but it really gave it a relevance today. And for me, it was important to shoot the movie on film, because I feel that's the medium of film I love. I think it's sad that film is going away, and it's a movie about a guy who's trying to find a negative, so I felt that was important to shoot the movie on film, and to celebrate the idea of real things, you know, real magazines. You know, when we researched the movie, we went to the Life archives, and we got to see the real Life magazines and the old ones. And you know, when you're holding an old magazine, you're holding a piece of history. You're holding something that's actually there at that time and it was of the moment. And for me, it's really unfortunate that now all the great things that come out of you know, what we have in this digital world in terms of accessibility and categorization and really being able to, you know, have access to so much more. That's a great thing, but the sad thing is that the real stuff is going away, and the real pictures and the real words and the real actual experience is now, you know, doesn't exist anymore. So I wanted to make that part of the movie. I thought it was Steve's idea. It was a really brilliant idea to give the movie context, and I'm glad that we were able to explore that.
Pregunta 3. Marian Enain de Cinefili.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
As an actor who self-directed himself, what was the biggest challenge you faced while shooting this movie?
Well, you know, directing an kind of it's inefficient. It's hard because you wish you could be two places at once and you just can't. But I think that the challenge is really, I think, for yourself, when you know that you have got it good enough that you can move on and go to the next scene. And that's really an internal question that sometimes you don't have the answer to, and you can rely on other people on the set. But if you're asking too many questions of other people, then people wonder who's in charge. That comes along with the process, and I found that every time I do it, I learn more about it, but I make mistakes. Sometimes it's not the same mistakes, and ultimately, it's kind of about going with your gut feeling, and you learn as you go along in terms of what you see. I get the movie, the dailies back, and I'll see the footage that we shot a day before, a few days before, and then I can sort of see how that related to what I was doing, so I kind of could correct off of that. But ultimately, it's not really a very scientific process, and you just kind of rely on the other actors. I talk to the actors and the crew beforehand, and I talk to them about what the process is going to be like, and then I'm going to need to rely on them sometimes and to indulge while sometimes we have to redo a part of the scene that I'm in because, I didn't get it right, or, since I'm in the scene with them. And usually the actors get on board with it, and they're really, really helpful. And you end up just being very reliant on crew and cast and the people that you trust.
Pregunta 4, Irving Torres, de Cine NT.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. En Reality Bites haces un retrato de jóvenes de una generación.
Espera que Ahora sí.
No. My what channel? There. Okay.
Hola, Ben. En Reality Bites haces un retrato de una generación que se une a un mundo cínico y que no tiene sueños que perseguir. Ahora, casi 20 años después, retomas a una persona de esta generación que parece encontrar en los sueños la única manera de confrontar la vida. De esta manera, tú has crecido, tú has madurado en este aspecto también así. ¿Cómo sientes el cambio que ha habido de esa generación que retrataste a esa generación en el mundo actual?
Yeah, well, I think just in terms of the fact that I am of that generation and that I've had that experience, I am 20 years older than when I made Reality Bites, and in a lot of ways I think the landscape has changed in terms of how we communicate with each other, social media, what we were just talking about in terms of print journalism going away. But in a lot of ways, I think the environment is very similar, too, to what people faced coming out of school 20 years ago in terms of the economic environment. And for me, I guess the big difference in where I'm at now is when I made Reality Bites is that I think I have this different perspective on life, having had 20 years of experience, and while I think I might have been much more focused, even the character that I played in Reality Bites about getting ahead and doing what you needed to do to be successful, for me this movie is a lot more about the emphasis on connecting with yourself and sort of not being necessarily successful in the real world, but what it takes to be successful as a person, to feel that you're the most, you realize your potential as a person. And I think that might reflect a change for me a little bit too in how I look at life at this point. I think I was less aware of being in the moment back then. I don't think I ever even thought about it that much. And now I think I'm much more aware of how temporary everything is in life, and wanting to appreciate what I have and what we have in the world, because it all can go away in a second and eventually does go away. So I think I got a little more philosophical about that, maybe.
Pregunta 5, Mari Carmen Navarro, Acceso TV.
Hola, después de hacer tantos personajes, ¿qué es lo que ocurre con Walter Mitty? ¿Cuál fue la complicación para separar un poco tu personalidad de este personaje?
Yeah, in terms of the characters that I played in the movie? Yeah. Well, for me, what I liked about what Steve Conrad wrote in his script and the approach to Walter Mitty and his fantasies was that I think in earlier incarnations of the story, Walter was fantasizing about being other people. And in this story, I always felt that Walter was fantasizing about being a different or better version of himself. So it wasn't really about trying to get outside of himself, it was trying to be more himself, a more fully realized version of himself as an Arctic explorer or as a superhero, but they were all versions of him. And so in terms of playing that, it really was just trying to tap into different aspects of Walter. So it wasn't confusing really, it was really more about it actually made it a lot clearer because it was all Walter. It was just Walter being different versions of himself. More confident or stronger or older or whatever it was. And so that made it was a very clear through line, and I think for the story I really liked that was thematically part of what the movie was about him trying to realize who he was as opposed to trying to be someone else.
Siguiente pregunta, Laura Rodríguez de La Virgen.
Hi, welcome to Mexico.
Thank you.
Sorry, the translation. First, as my colleague says, it's a wonderful movie. It's a very touching in so many ways. And the question is, how do you see the world? You say something about the media and everything, but here is Walter is a very normal person who is, he feels that he is not really important, and then he discovered that he is very important. Then, in all these years you have at that your beginning, maybe it's very difficult to open some doors. Now you have many exits and very success, and you have the opportunity to be here with all these kind of movies. How do you see the world at this moment?
Well, I feel very fortunate to have the opportunities I have. I honestly, as an actor or a filmmaker, all you really, at your heart, want to do is do what you love doing. And as an actor, it can be frustrating because you're at the whim of other people having to hire you. Filmmakers, I think, you can have more impetus and be more self-sufficient. But, then once you start making the movies, will anybody watch them? Will anybody care? And I feel really fortunate to have had both and to have, that's all an actor can ask for. And all the success on top of that is, of course, it's a wonderful thing that I really appreciate. And I appreciate it in the context of my life because I feel for a long time, before I had a family, that was what I focused on more solely, really, and now having a family, that focus and that base is really, more important. When it comes down to life and life experience, the happiness of our family, and also the health and security, all those things, that's what we all want for our families. And then above that, the next level is, can I have creative enjoyment and fulfillment? And I feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to keep trying to strive after that. I think creativity is something where you're always trying to figure out what the next thing is and what's the next challenge, because that's what keeps you alive and excited. And I feel that my point of view on life has changed over the years, and I think that most people do in terms of as we get older. I think our life experience happens to us, and we get affected by that. And that should be reflected in the creativity and in the work. And for me, I feel like this movie was an opportunity to reflect for myself where I'm at in my life at this point, and want to strive to be at. I think it's a reminder for me to keep on remembering how fortunate I am to have what I have in the moment, and to open my eyes to what's going on in the world. And that's something that's something I need to be reminding myself of all the time. So, thanks.
Siguiente pregunta, Fabiana Scherer, de la Nación Argentina.
Hi, hello. Hi. Sometimes in the movie, the thing beautiful don't find called attention. Yes, that's right. For you, what thing don't find collaboration was so important and beautiful?
Well, I mean, there's so much beauty in the world, I think, that we sometimes miss out on. I mean, life is a beautiful and a painful thing, and there's so many different experiences. It can be overwhelming, I think, to see all of the hardships of life for people. I think as much as to see the beauty, too. I think when we live in a world where we try to get through our day and we try to sort of make it through on our own way and deal with our own challenges, then you look at the challenges of other people in the world, and I think it's really important to remember that. And it can be daunting. It can be daunting when you see all the pain in the world, but then there's also these incredibly beautiful things in the world, and acts of kindness by people, and beautiful places that just exist naturally, that can fill us with inspiration to kind of get through the tougher part of life. And I think that's what movies are about. I think that's what art is about. I think we all look for that inspiration from art to help us through the tough part of life and keep us going. So I think it's all around us. And again, that's, for me, the movie's a little bit of a reminder to myself to keep my eyes open to that. And I had an amazing time making the movie, getting to go to these beautiful places, and also the experiences with the people that I met. And I feel like those interactions, when you meet a new friend, or you connect with somebody from a different culture or a different world, and you have all of a sudden a connection and a friendship that didn't exist before, that's an amazing thing. And those things are things you really cherish, and I think as I get older, I appreciate that more, because you realize how rare that is to have. Old friendships. Old friendships are a beautiful thing that you can't replicate. You can't replicate history with somebody that you've had for, as you get older, for 20, 30 years. That's just an amazing thing to share. And I cherish those relationships more and more as I get older.
Siguiente pregunta, Daphne Escamilla, de Ciudad Noticias.
Hey.
Good afternoon. Do you know something about comedy Mexican? If you do, what is your opinion about a comedian or movie? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with Mexican comedy, to tell you the truth, and I am familiar with Mexican filmmakers, some Mexican filmmakers that have made movies, abroad. So I'm a fan of Alfonso Cuarón and Guillermo del Toro, and I've worked with Emmanuel Lubezki, who's a great cinematographer from here. He shot Reality Bites 20 years ago for me. He's a brilliant cinematographer. And, but in terms of Mexican comedy world, not as familiar as I would like to be. And I was being told about this movie called Instructions Not Included. I hear it's very funny and good. I have to see.
Siguiente pregunta, Mariana Mijares, de Revista Veintitantos.
Hi, in the movie, the Life magazine has this saying about to see the world and to feel the people. Do you think that fantasies and dreams like Walter's can inspire ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things?
Sure. In the movie, I think that's what happens. I think Walter works. He works taking care of the pictures of Life magazine. He's categorizing the negatives. So he spent years and years looking at the most amazing images from the 20th and 21st century, and it informs his subconscious, and he sees every day people doing extraordinary things that he's not doing. And I think that's part of what makes him jump out and go into the world and finally take that step. And I think it's what I was talking about earlier with art and movies and music. These things inspire us, I think, to connect with a part of ourselves that wants that and that wants to have that experience. And because once you get beyond the everyday necessities of life, that's what I think are very human things, that we want to have a special experience, and we want to feel connected to one another and understand what this world is that we live in, that nobody really ultimately knows what it's about. So to me, those things can and should inspire people to want to go out and take chances and travel, or do something they haven't done before, or pursue a dream that they have that might seem impossible.
Siguiente pregunta, Alejandra Carrillo de Mini Entretenimiento.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Hope you're having a great time here in Mexico.
I am very good, thank you. They have incredible corn tortillas at this restaurant, at this hotel. I'm taking some back with me.
Well, we know about Walter's dreams, but which are Ben's dreams?
My dreams are, my dream was always to make movies and to be a movie director. That's been my dream since I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I'm living my dream for sure. And beyond that, when you have a family and you have kids, you start to dream about doing things with your kids and watching your kids get older and have their life and being a part of that somehow. So I dream about having experiences with them and traveling with them and watching them, become adults and fulfill their dreams. That's definitely part of it. But I think I'm pretty simple that way in terms of I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I love making movies and talking earlier about being creatively challenged and feeling engaged in something. And so I feel very fortunate to be living out that dream.
Siguiente pregunta, Laura Ángeles de Teatro Online.
Hola, bienvenido a México. Yo quisiera saber, en cuestión de la parte musical, sabemos que la música es súper importante dentro de una película y escuchamos bandas súper importantes en esta película. ¿Podrías comentarnos y hablarnos un poco más acerca de la música para este film?
Yeah, the music for me was very important in the movie. I mean, music in general is important to me. I get inspired by music, maybe for me even more than movies. Though movies have a whole different type of inspiration for me, and I love movies. But music is something that immediately and directly can affect you emotionally. In a matter of seconds, while a movie is something that happens to you over the course of a few hours. But so the music and the marriage of images and music in the movie was very important to me, putting that together. And I wanted it to evoke a tone and a feeling to me that's sort of indescribable, and that's a very personal thing. So I listened to a lot of different music when I was working on preparing the movie, and then as we started to shoot the movie, we sort of honed down the music that we were using to about 30 or 40 songs that we really liked. And then as I started to edit the movie, I honed that down even more. And the composer, Theodore Shapiro, is I think a very gifted composer, and he wrote this theme that really I felt connected with the idea of Walter going on this sort of inner journey. And then there was an artist named Jose Gonzalez that I was listening to of those 30 songs, and he's a Swedish singer-songwriter, and I reached out to him and asked him to see the movie, a very early cut of the movie, and he came to New York and we watched the movie together, and he and Teddy Shapiro worked together. We used a lot of Jose's songs, and his voice, he started to hum, because I feel he has a really special voice. I wanted his voice to be Walter's voice in the movie. So he started to hum over the soundtrack. And so throughout the movie you hear him humming along with the orchestra. And then there are songs of his that he performs with his group called Junip. There are 2 or 3 of his songs in the movie that are by Junip. And then he sings the end title song also. That was written by Ryan Adams and him. And Teddy Shapiro and Ryan Adams. So Jose's voice to me was sort of like this component that really brought the film together for me when I was editing it. And I feel he's just an incredible artist, and anything he sings sounds beautiful.
Siguiente pregunta, Bernardo Soto de Artes Novel.
Hi Ben. Hey. How are you? First of all, I'm a huge fan of Cabo Guy.
Oh, thank you.
Jim Carrey. But
you're the guy. You're the one.
I have two tiny questions. The first one is, you work with Sean Penn. How difficult was working with this great actor? You are also with this movie. I think that you are a great director. But what is it working with Sean Penn? That is an Oscar winner. And the second question is, you started promotion right here in Mexico. Why Mexico? Why did you choose this country to begin your promotion?
Well, I'll answer that part first. I I've enjoyed, I've come to Mexico a few times, I've worked here a few times, I've come here to movies a few times, and I've always felt a nice connection with the audiences here. And it's very nice to come to a place where you feel like you connect with the people. And I've always enjoyed being here, coming here in this country. So I hope I can keep coming in the future too. And I came a lot when I was a kid too. Went to different places like Guadalajara and all around. So it's always fun for me to come here. I think the first time I came to Mexico City, I was about 5 or 6 years old with my parents. So and then in terms of working with, and so it's a great place to start. It's a great place to begin, and I'm happy to be here. Working with Sean was for me, first of all, I'm a huge fan of his, and I've known him over the years, but I've never worked with him, and we talked over the years about trying to do a project together, and then this one came up, and I felt that he was the perfect person to play the role. I felt that he represented as an actor and as a person the integrity that Sean O'Connell has in the film, and that as an audience watching the movie, you'd be excited to see him when he finally showed up in the film, because the whole movie sort of leading up towards Walter trying to find him, and I felt it was very important that the audience felt, when this guy showed up, that it was worth it. And Sean has an incredible simplicity about his work, his acting. He's brilliant. He's also a great filmmaker, and he approaches the work as a filmmaker, even as an actor. So he, at the end of the day, we shot that scene up on a glacier up in Iceland, and at the end of the day, after shooting the scene all day, he literally was picking up camera cases and bringing them down the mountain with the crew, which I was like, wow. So then, of course, I had to start picking up stuff. Some friends can maybe look at that. But he is that kind of a filmmaker. He really, he's used to going out and making movies like Into the Wild, where he, that adventure spirit and that communal feeling of movie making is something that he embraces. So it wasn't difficult at all. It was actually the opposite. It was incredibly easy to work with him, and a very, really special experience.
Siguiente pregunta, Ernesto Buitrón, de TV Azteca.
Buenas tardes, bienvenido a México. Yo creo que mi pregunta estaría enfocada un poquito a... Esta película es rendirle un tributo al cine, a todo lo que has vivido como espectador. ¿De dónde viene un poquito la idea, sobre todo por todos los elementos que utilizas que evocan las grandes producciones de la historia del cine?
For this movie. Yeah. Well, I mean, the inspiration for me came out of the script, first of all, and the short story, because the short story, I think, evokes such a beautiful tone and this melancholy and this sort of this nobility of the regular guy, as I've been talking about. And I feel like that, to me, was the first inspiration. And then the script had all these different cues in it, these visual cues, from the Time Life building, the offices, which for me related back to an era where those buildings were built in the mid-50s, late 50s in New York. That related also back to the late 1930s when the short story was written. So sort of this historical reference to New York and a period of time that I grew up in New York and I feel a connection to. And then when Walter goes out into the world, he's a visual person. He looks at pictures all the time. So I felt that these images that he's been looking at for years and years would all inform his experience, and that's how he sees the world. And I wanted the movie to feel like that, and that feels for the experience that he has. It's supposed to be this beautiful experience he has. I was hoping to try and make the movie look as close to that as possible. So there was a lot of opportunity, I think, within the story to tell it in a visual way and to sort of trust that the visuals could communicate that.
Siguiente pregunta, María José Cadena, de Curiosos Televisa.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And on behalf of Curiosos, a TV show that we host for kids, we'd like to thank you for your job and your passion that you put into your things. And,
thank you.
For that, we all admire you, and you help inspire new generations. And we just want to know something.
Okay.
Yes, first of all, I'm such a huge fan of your work. I love the 10 Dance with Wes Anderson.
Thank you.
It's amazing. And we wanted to know, this is for teenagers, and which could be your message for the next generations to follow their dreams and achieve their goals? Which can be your advice?
Well, I think, to be as fearless as possible. I mean, I think to me that's the big sort of barrier I've found in my life, is overcoming fear, and all different types of fear. There's the fear of failure, there's the fear of, fear of falling off the mountain, there's fear of not realizing your potential. All these things are, losing people you love, all those, these are things that inform our lives. So everything seems to me to be about getting over that barrier, getting past that, and taking chances and being willing to, and I think that's what the movie really is about, being willing to just step into the face of fear and then take that chance. Because even if you do fail, you still have the pride of knowing that you took action and you did something. And that always leads to something good, I think. So I think just keep taking chances. All right, thanks.
Siguiente pregunta, Hilda Isa Salas de la Taquilla.
Hi, Ben, to your left. Welcome back to Mexico.
Thank you.
I'd like to know, have you been always challenging yourself in movies and as an actor and as a person? But I would like to know two things. One, if in your personal life, is there something that you were so afraid or shy to do and you regret not doing? Or approaching a girl when you were single? I don't know. And the second one is...
Ooh, me? No.
And the second one is...
like every girl I met. I mean, definitely, yes, I was shy. Regret. Of course I regret it. Yeah, but, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to... It's intimidating for me when I was a kid to try to figure out how to be sort of, how to have that sense of myself. And I think it took me years of trying to really get in touch with who I am. I still feel like I'm doing that now, and What was the second part? Sorry.
And also, here in Mexico, soap operas are very popular, and most of the actors that are well known are from soaps. And if you were to be invited to do one, would you accept?
Sure. Okay. What's the role? Some sort of Latin lover type? No, sure, that'd be fun. I mean, I'm leaving tonight. I don't think I can do it today, but maybe next time. Yeah, no, I'm sure. I actually started on a soap opera in an American soap opera when I was about 15 years old. I did a soap opera called Guiding Light, and I came on for about 2 weeks one Christmas, and then I never came back.
You would be great in one of our soap operas.
Really? Oh. Send a script.
Siguiente pregunta, Lourdes Rodríguez de Zona 33.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Bienvenido aquí a México.
Thank you.
Hay unas escenas donde tú te conectas con el público joven, el skateboarding, y también andas en patineta. ¿Nos podrías hablar sobre esta experiencia?
Yeah. Well, I grew up skateboarding in New York, on the streets of New York, so that was something that I really connected with in the story. The idea of skateboarding in your youth and then sort of letting it go. And so it was actually a great reason for me to get back on the skateboard to do the movie, and I really enjoyed that. When we were shooting in Iceland, actually when we were shooting in New York, for the fantasy sequence where Walter has the fight with his boss and they're sort of snowboarding on concrete through Manhattan, we actually shot that on skateboards. I was on skateboards and Adam Scott was on rollerblades. And so it was really fun to be able to skateboard down 57th Street and 5th Avenue in Manhattan. And we shut off 5th Avenue and just had this crazy sort of dream come true moments of having the whole street to yourself. And it was a little bit scary sometimes going down the mountain in Iceland. we had a great skateboard double, this guy named Ryan Holden, who's a great downhill longboarder. But for the closer shots, I was actually skateboarding. We had a safety rig that's hooked up. But it was important to me to really try to do as much for real as possible and allow the audience to feel like it was really happening, because I felt like that was the point of the movie. And I never really feel that visual effects you can necessarily translate that for things like that as well. So it was really fun, and I enjoyed it. And I just recently bought my daughter a skateboard and started to teach her to skateboard a little bit, which is I have a whole different perspective on it as a parent now, because now I'm just afraid she's going to fall. And you know, as a kid, you're always just like, I'll be fine. And as the parent, of course, you're much more protective.
Última pregunta, Rocío Macías, del periódico La Razón.
Buenas tardes. Son dos preguntas. La primera es si alguien de la revista Time te hizo ya algún comentario o algún trabajador similar a tu personaje. Y la segunda es sobre tu fundación, si tienes algún plan aquí en México o si te ha llegado alguna petición.
Thank you. Thanks for asking about it. No, I haven't. Yeah, we haven't done any work in Mexico yet, but I would like to. I mean, sort of the primary focus, and the reason I started the foundation originally was because of going down to Haiti. Went down to Haiti right before the earthquake, and then went down afterwards, and wanted to do something to help down there, and focusing on education too, trying to help with education in that country. But there's so many places that you know, deserve attention, and for me, I'm trying to not overstep what I feel I can help with in some small way. So hopefully someday it'd be great to help with some programs here in Mexico. But at this point, we haven't explored that, and but I'd love to. And the first question about the Time magazine, was that? Could you ask me again? Oh.
Do you want me to ask the question again?
Yeah, could you?
Okay. Yeah, by all means.
¿Podrías repetir la pregunta?
Live Magazine. Si alguien de la revista te hizo ya algún comentario sobre la película o algún trabajador similar a tu personaje.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, when we were researching the movie and we contacted Life, we met a guy named William Shapiro, who was basically the guy who was in charge of transitioning Life magazine from being a real magazine into being an online magazine. And so he was a great resource for us because he experienced what Walter is experiencing in the movie. And he was the guy who was in charge of taking care of all the pictures. So when he saw the film, he wrote me a very nice email that sort of said that he really felt that it connected for him on a deep level with the experience that the people who worked at that magazine had, because they really did care so much about the work that they did. And I talked to other journalists and people who worked at magazines who, echoed that sentiment and said, it's nice to at least have some sort of acknowledgement for the work that is going away now in this digital world. So it was nice that William Shapiro connected with that.
Muchísimas gracias a todos por haber venido y concluimos con esto. Recuerden que estrenamos el 25 de diciembre. 25 de diciembre con 600 copias a nivel nacional.